What is up, team? Nala here. So just before we start talking about Ubers, ignore squished me. I'm been having some green screen problems, so I'm gonna be smaller today. That said, let's talk about Ubers. So Ubers was an especially mentally taxing instance for us. There's a lot of stuff that you gotta pay attention to, and it's very, very long. It was the longest dungeon that we've had to do to date, and hopefully you'll see the same thing. If any of the others take you a little bit longer, you'll really be pushing that gold boundary or not earning it. So, the beginning of this dungeon is the hardest part. Plain and simple. First boss and the initial trash are the two most difficult things in this entire instance. Everything else is very, very straightforward. So if you can do this right, you can get through the rest of the instance. That said, there are still some mechanics you have to watch out for later on. We had a couple fun little fails thinking that we were on top of our stuff in the second half of the instance. So, where to begin here? You want to pull each of these mob rooms at the beginning, for the first two anyway, individually, because you'll get these rallying banners that the mobs put down, the Iron Grunts to be specific, that will have an area of effect that slowly grows. And if that area of effect touches anyone, even if they're not technically in line of sight of the banner, they will aggro to you. So you need to be extra careful because you can end up with way more mobs than you bargained for on any of these pulls if you start to go down the road of leaving the banner stuff. Now that can be a strat that you want to use if you want to have the banner pull everything. I've seen it done before. I wouldn't recommend it. What we've been doing is we've been pulling those two rooms together, clearing this lead belcher and any cannons that she spawns, and then pulling the next three rooms all together. Now, pulling the next three rooms all together is not a simple task, and we popped everything. We popped hero, we popped personals, we popped tree, we popped you name it. I think our druid trank, but we'll double check on that in here. And so to go about doing this, what you're going to do is you're going to click off all your hots, pop any speed stuff that you have, and have your tank go ahead and gather everything up. If you saw Iron Docks, you'll notice that it's a very similar strat. And then you get around the corner, and you have everyone try and stay around the corner, and you start your stun rotation, which for us was pretty much just Cat Totem. So, you know, that was special. But you pop everything, you hero, you go absolutely crazy. If you could ring, you'd ring too, but ring does nothing, so ignore that. And you just go nuts. We let our AoE damage carry us here. With respect to this pull, you really don't need to worry about the banner. But if you'll notice, just a moment ago, a little purple arcane explosion went backwards under my feet. Now this is an ability called Shrapnel Nova, and the color effect doesn't really do the nature of the physical damage justice, but it's a little Shrapnel Nova under your feet that'll explode for about 50% of your health. So your tank and your DPS need to be paying special attention to where these are spawning. Because if your tank is taking some heavy damage from mobs and the cannons and everything else that's going on in that one little spot, and they get hit by a Shrapnel Nova, they will most likely just get one-shotted. So you gotta make sure that you're watching your feet. I got hit by it here because I wasn't paying enough attention, and it kind of backfired. So, going forward, I would say go ahead and just pay extra special attention to where those are. Didn't actually need these, I keep forgetting that. So, that brings us to the first boss. The first boss is extremely easy, and to get him to aggro as quickly as possible, you have to click off all of these little iron traps with lightning coming out of them. Now, when you click off the traps, the boss becomes active. So what we did is we just put a freezing trap down, we went ahead and killed the mobs around the boss very, very quickly while our DK kited them, and in doing so we were able to get the boss active as quickly as possible. So what we did is we actually split up the room into its four corners. The hunter, the mage, myself, and the DK all took one corner, and we were responsible for that. So whenever power conduit, which is this ability you see here, the mob just chooses 2, 4, and then 6 conduits to activate at once. If there's one in your corner, you're going to go get that. Now, we chose these locations because our DK is tanky, and if he gets out of position, he can deal with it down there. Ghost Wolf only let me get so far, and with Disengage and Blink, making it extremely easy for our Hunter and Mage, it made way more sense for them to be doing the 2 spots closer to the stairs than to be doing any others, as well as deterrence. So, given that I had the fewest personal cooldowns with just Shamanistic Rage, it made the most sense, period, to go ahead and let them take care of the ones right below the stairs, and I was responsible for the back right corner. Now, we did this at the beginning of the instance just by putting some colored markers down. You can see that at the beginning of the video, and it's good to get that out of the way early because it makes this boss much, much easier. You can't really just leave one person responsible for the conduits because it would take so long. So, you just jump down, you go around, you channel these little conduit things. Now, if you see the spike in the bottom left corner of the screen there, that's called a, what's it called? I think it's a gravitational spike, or a load spike, one of the two. Anyway, if you are in the little bubble that's around that spike, you will move and cast slower. And it can even interrupt your casting if you're too close to the spike itself. So you have to pay special attention when maneuvering around the room to deal with those conduits, and watch out for the spikes. So if you're doing these things, the boss really is not that easy, but if you're expecting one person to carry you through Conduit World, it's not going to be successful. So, that said, you can just jump right into the next room, don't really have too much to worry about in here, make sure you're interrupting Debilitating Ray and dispelling the Rejuvenating Serum off of the Alchemist. We went ahead and just killed the Alchemist first because with dispels and everything else for Debilitating Ray, it made the most sense to just deal with that and get rid of as much healing as we could coming out of the Alchemist. Now, these are mechanics that you will see coming up in the next boss. So, Debilitating Ray, the boss will, or I think it's Focus Ray, or it's the same effect icon as well as physical effect. He'll fixate on a random player and charge at them. Debilitating Ray just reduces your haste and attack speed. So you need to make sure that you're interrupting that both on the trash and on the boss. The second thing is Rejuvenating Serum, like we talked about. It's a very big heal over time that the mobs put on themselves and is also part of the boss fight. So you need to make sure that you're going ahead and dispelling that as quickly as possible. We actually had 3 dispels, so if we ever had a Rejuvenating Serum stay on anything, it meant that none of our DPS were paying attention and we really did not deserve to be doing well. That said, the monstrosities are also very important. They do a lot of damage to your tank, and if you get hit by their erupting slam, or eruption, their aggro tables get kind of wonky and you can end up in a bad spot. So if you notice, we're just kind of standing here. We were waiting to leave combat and kind of resync potions so that we could get a pre-pot in, because you're not able to pop a regular pot during the fight, given that you need to pop an invis pot shortly after the fight. So we went ahead and let ourselves pre-pot just so that we could get that nice little damage boost. The 1 or 2 seconds that it took for us to wait was not a big deal. So with this boss, Debilitating Fixation. So debilitating is still there, it's just no longer a ray, it's a fixation. So what you need to do with this boss is burn down the monstrosities as quickly as possible. Now, given that we had Shaman Cleave as well as Mage Cleave from Prismatic Crystal, this was not too taxing for us. If you saw there, Debilitating Fixation did not get interrupted on time and it actually killed me. That was okay because I was able to onk. You need to watch out for where you're standing, because throughout the fight he'll throw down these Vile Blood Serums. There's a very large pillar that the boss is currently standing at the base of. This pillar actually blocks line of sight, despite the fact that it's not a very large part of the world. So if you notice, I was kind of standing out of the way of my healer, and he wasn't able to throw some hops on me in slow. When I took 1 hit from the boss, that was it for me. So you want to just slowly start kiting the boss back toward the stairs throughout the fight so that you don't get too many Vile Blood Serums. They do disappear later on. He can only have so many on the ground at once, so if you're good at managing space, it's not that big a deal. But you also want to just move the boss toward the stairs because you want to slowly work your way to the next room. So we just had our DK. Whenever he needed to move somewhere, he would just back up further up the stairs, and it made dealing with Kryak very straightforward. So Kryak, if you're dispelling the Rejuvenating Serums, does go down. He has a lot of health, so it does take a good long while, but overall not a very hard fight, say after I died, onset fight. You just need to make sure that you're interrupting and dispelling on time. So once you've killed Kryak, you're going to go ahead and run up these stairs. Now, we talked about invis potting, but for mob count purposes, you still need to kill some of these, I died, so I'm going to eat here. You still need to kill a few mobs up in this room. So the pack to the left of the stairs up here, your tank is going to run up and grab, and then you're going to mush yourselves against this wall. I was waiting for well-fed buff. You're going to mush yourselves up against this wall because the Lieutenant, the Black Iron Elite, does a very, very powerful charge that I'm sure many of you have been hit with in Heroic and Mythic modes. This charge will knock you back off of the platform that you're on, and so it's very, very important that you stand close to him because he will only charge you if you're not in melee range. So by having all of our ranged DPS and healer in melee range of the Black Iron Elite, we're able to elevate this, and in case he got stepped into a weird spot, or if everything else went wrong, we had our backs mushed up against the wall, and so we were able to, even if on the off chance that we did get knocked, deal with that. So then what you're going to do is you're going to go up the stairs. You want to be at 34 mobs, so just check your mob count here. You're going to go up the stairs, pop your invis pots, and come on up here. These mobs need to die before you can jump down to the boss room, and they're necessary for mob count as well. So start your stun rotation and just leave them down. You want to pay special attention to the Black Iron Summoner, because you can get more mobs than you need. And the mobs that are summoned by the Black Iron Summoner don't actually count towards mob count. Now there's no elite up here, so you don't have to worry about getting charged. There's just high damage from the veterans and a stacking Sunder. If your tank gets too many stacks of Sunder, it'll be very, very hard for your healer to heal through, so pay special attention to that. Now the reason we chose to use an invisibility potion here is because of these Black Iron Siege Breakers, the four ogres that are down the stairs there. They have so much health and are only worth one mob that it's a complete and utter waste of time, given all of the things that you need to accomplish in this instance, to waste on killing them. So, at this point, you've got to be thinking about time, and you've got to be thinking about how to use your cooldowns efficiently. So if you remember, we heroed at the beginning of the instance, before any bosses on the crazy trash pull that we did. Now, this is a 25-minute gold run, so you can reasonably only hero twice, and so the second time you hero has to be equally opportune. Now, killing all of these crazy AoE mobs took way longer than the boss for us, and so we went ahead and just heroed on cooldown so that we could get in a third hero, given that our run would get us there, so that we would have that third hero for the very end of the instance, because you need it for the trash pull. So my sated fatigue, the time fatigue, whatever the mage version is, buff was gone because I died, but my group's wasn't, so I was listening for them to tell me when to go ahead and pop hero here, and our mage was on point as well. So essentially we just waited for the third set of groups. I went ahead and checked their buffs, and then once we pulled, we popped hero for this last pack. This way your hero bleeds into the later part of the boss fight where the boss is actually active, and you still get some of the benefits of that. You'll notice we waited a little bit into the trash pack to pop it, giving us the most value for our buck. And with 12 minutes 24 on the clock, we still have plenty of time, that 10-minute window, to pop hero again before we would be out of time. That said, you need to pay extra special attention here to the Black Iron Summoners, as you can still get extra mobs, so you need to be interrupting them as well as the Debilitating Ray. We ran out of interrupts there because we're super bad, and we had to use a Thunderstorm. Now, this next boss is very, very straightforward, a few spinning mechanics that you have to watch out for, but what I've seen a lot of people mess up on is the Iron Barb Sky Reaver. It's very, very compelling, especially if you have a bunch of range, like we do, to go ahead and just nuke it to infinity. Now if you notice, by the time he was halfway across the room, he was almost at 50%. And the boss dismounts his Sky Reaver when the Sky Reaver reaches 50%. So if the Sky Reaver is flying over the stairs anywhere around the room and reaches 50%, it will drop the boss up there, it will be considered a wipe, and you'll have to wait for the boss to respawn. This is a very unfortunate eventuality, and you need to make sure that you try and avoid it, because it's just a complete and utter waste of time, as you have to sit there and wait for the entire gauntlet to start over. So, on to the mechanics. The mechanics of this boss are very straightforward. You have a charge, which you just saw, where the boss will charge at a random player, hitting all players between him and his target. So what we just did, when all three of us lined up and made sure we were in a really good spot, we all got hit by it, and it takes you to about 60%. So if your healer's not paying attention, they can get a little behind. You will also throw axes at people that do ticking damage, and if you get hit with an axe and a charge, it's very possible that you'll get one-shotted. So that charge took our druid to about 50%. If you have a couple axes on you and get hit by that charge at the same time, it's going to be a bad day. Now, as if one axe debuff wasn't enough, there's another axe debuff that this boss does. If you see the two flaming spinning things in the back of the room right now, he'll throw these flaming spinning axes at people, and they'll just continue to pattern around the room. It appears to be random. There may be a pattern to it, but they just kind of go where they want to go, and you got to avoid them because they do absurd ticking damage. And if you are anywhere below 50%, when a charge goes out, it's very, very likely that you'll die. Other than that, it's just a positioning fight, so make sure that you're not standing with some people between you and the boss, and make sure that you're avoiding those axes, and it's a very straightforward fight. The only other thing you have to watch out for is like we talked at the beginning, the Sky Reaper's health. Now, we talked about how the trash at the beginning of this instance is the most difficult part. The trash in this next room, I would say, is a close second. So there's a lot of different mechanics going on at once, not this trash pull, but the upcoming one, where you have AoE Fears, the potential for more ads, and Earth Pounder. So Earth Pounder is the attack that the large ogres with clubs do, where they repeatedly just pound on the ground, and they walk in a straight line. We had some very, very, very curvy straight lines in this next room, where the ogres would go ahead and just track our tank with Earth Pounder wherever he stood. So it got really, really risky when we weren't on our point with CC. So what we went ahead and did is we pulled all the mobs onto this haystack over here. And in doing so, we gave ourselves more room between the whelp cages in the back and the drake cages and their drake keepers. So the drake keepers need to be killed as quickly as possible and stunned when they set off to open a drake cage, because if you stun them, they will no longer seek after the drake cage and try and open it. So as soon as you see a drake keeper start to walk towards the cage, knock them back, stun them, just try and disable them in some way so that they don't go ahead and open that cage, because those do not count toward mob count and they're kind of unavoidable. So once you've dealt with that trash, and if you're on point with your stun rotation, it's not that bad like we talked about, you'll be on to the third or fourth boss. It's way too many bosses, 5 bosses. That feels like Everbloom all over again. You'll be on to the fourth boss, Ragewing. Ragewing is very, very straightforward. Don't stand in the lava and avoid Magma Spit. It's not Mythic Magma Spit, where the lava breath that sweeps across the platform, where it sweeps across the entire platform except for one spot. There is a much, much wider margin of error as far as where you can stand and avoid getting hit by lava breath. So what you want to do is we stacked up in one spot at the beginning, so that when Molten Spit got cast, we knew exactly where it would be and where not to stand in the future. So at the beginning, we just stood over here. We waited until Magma Spit was cast. Sorry for the crazy camera motion there. Magma Spit got cast, and now it's right there. So we know we can avoid it, and we made sure we would try and put all new Magma Spits on that back line, so that the entire front of the platform was open to just running along it. Now, so Engulfing Fire, as you just saw, Ragewing will sweep across. We didn't accomplish that really with the Magma Spit, but that was the goal. Engulfing Flame will sweep across the platform and do a very, very large amount of damage and disorient you if you get hit by it. It'll pretty much just kill you if you're at anything other than 100% on this difficulty, like it just did to our healer. So you may pay extra special attention to that. We almost wiped here on Ragewing this run, and that would have just been tragic if we lost both our healer and a DPS. So for the next part of the fight, you kind of don't really have to worry about these really big orange swirlies. They do hurt, but if your healer is alive, like ours was just not, you'll be a-okay as long as you have some sort of AoE healing going out. It makes dealing with the trash much, much easier because you can just cleave them down right away. And given that we're a really cleave heavy comp, as I've talked about in all of my videos, this just very much simplified the process for us. So here we are again, another Engulfing Fire. I'm super bad and got hit by it because I thought I was going the wrong way. So Ragewing proved to be a super fun time for us. So you just gotta make sure that you're paying attention to Engulfing Fires here. But once you get Ragewing through both sky phases, he'll come down on the ground and you don't have to worry about Engulfing Fire anymore, you just kind of have to move him down. So we made it to the second sky phase and you no longer have to worry about positioning, except for not standing in Magma Spit. I talked about how it didn't really matter if you stood in these large orange swirlies here. If you can avoid it, do, but just try and stay relatively stacked as a group. So if you can coordinate movement, go ahead and do that to just take some pressure off your healer, because ours was struggling here a little bit at the end. Not any offense to him, but it was just a lot to do coming up with little mana after having been battle rezzed. So once you go ahead and finish off Ragewing, you're going to have to make sure that all of your group has invisibility potions ready. If you all have invisibility potions ready, you can go ahead and skip the trash in the next room, except for 2 mobs. If you go out and find any videos about Ubers, you'll notice that they all say the 2 large gladiator mobs right before the last boss count for 2. They no longer do. That was patched out. So you actually do still have to kill 2 mobs in this room if you're using our strat before you pop your invisibility potions. Now this was great for us because our invisibility potions were not yet on cooldown, given how we potted before. So the timing worked out perfectly, and we were able to go ahead and kill these 2 mobs, as well as, if my math is correct, yeah, just these 2 mobs, and then the 2 mobs on the bridge at the end. So once you know where the patrol is and you've killed the large dragon, it's unfortunate that we did the dragon instead of the patrol. That would have been a little bit easier in hindsight, but it's always hard to know exactly what the right thing to do is. So once you've gone ahead and killed all of these mobs, you run over to the corner, pop your invis pot. You should have plenty of room on your invisibility potions, so even if you don't pop Stampede, which I don't think we did here, you'll be able to make it across the room in no time whatsoever. So, oh, we did Stampede. Way to go, team. You'll be able to make it across the room in no time whatsoever. Make sure you dismiss pets, because pets can be kind of buggy with invis pots. At this point, you want to just come over here, have your tank click off their invis pot first, and aggro the 2 large guys. And once everyone's pots are off, just go ahead and nuke them down. At this point, your hero debuff should be off cooldown, and you're going to go ahead and use that on the boss, but not on the pull. If you recall, Warlord Zayla, the upcoming boss, is a 3-part fight. There's the initial phase, where it's just Zayla, and Zayla does a Black Iron Cyclone, and you just have to not be in melee range. We just had our tank stand there and take it, because we were all ranged and it was very easy for us to avoid. If you have melee DPS, they're going to have to pay extra special attention to their positioning and when Black Iron Cyclone is happening in Phase 3. Phase 2 is an adds phase. Warlord Zayla will go ahead and get on one of the dragons flying around the room and command the rest of the dragons to bombard the platform with Engulfing Flame, the same mechanic that was used on the Rage Wing fight. Now, their Engulfing Flame is, I'm just going to pause this here so that we can talk about it real quick. Their Engulfing Flame only goes in 3 spots. So what you'll eventually come to realize is the top edge of the platform here and the right edge of the platform here are the only spaces where you'll find these dragons landing. So there are 3 spots that they can land on either of those. I'm not going to find my screenwriting tool, so that's unfortunate. But you can have dragons in the top, center, or bottom of these locations. And so I'm just going to go ahead and we'll resume there. And you have to, the same applies to the top as well. So you have to just kind of think of it as a 9-box grid and think about which box is the best to stand in. And so what we did is we went ahead and grouped up as best we could for phases 2 and 3 so that we didn't have to worry that much about positioning. So once Warlord Zayla hits, I believe it's 65%, you'll phase her. And, oh, she was casting Black Iron Cyclone here, so she didn't get phased. But you'll phase her, and she will run and jump on a dragon, and you'll be in phase 2. Phase 2, you get 3 adds. These adds have Chain Pull, which you'll remember from many, many different challenge modes. So here you can see an example of someone getting hit by Engulfing Fire, which you should remember from many, many challenge modes, as well as Dragon's Roar, which knocks you back. So you don't want to be too close to the edge there, and you got to see both the mechanics in rapid succession in just that one frame. So you get pulled in and then pretty much immediately knocked back. So you have to make sure that once you get pulled in, you're not facing an edge. At this point, you're kind of just waiting for Zayla to come back down, and you usually don't have to wait that long. What I neglected to mention is we heroed on those adds because you really, really don't want to have Warlord Zayla and those 3 adds active at the same time. So now at this point we kind of just called dragon positions because you only have one on the top and one on the right at any given time. So we were able to just say, okay, this is where you need to be headed, and we didn't have to worry too much about fire damage. It does get a little bit hectic when you throw Black Iron Cyclone into the mix as well. I had to just kind of stand there and take Cyclone damage because I was boxed in by fire. And even if fire doesn't look like it's extending all the way across the platform, as long as you're in line with a fire from one of the dragons, you will be taking damage. And our mage realized this here and managed to escape with her life, but got a little hairy. So you need to just make sure that you're avoiding fire and nuking Zayla as quickly as possible, and you'll be right on that road to gold. So we managed to get, I was hoping for 24 even, but 23.58, and that was our last one. So we got challenge Warlord's Gold. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you got some useful tips. And if you haven't seen any of the other videos in the challenge mode series, I would encourage you to go ahead and seek them out. So once you've completed all of the challenge modes, you get a really cool Yeti mount. You get a title called Indomitable. I believe it's Indomitable, the Indomitable, and which I was struggling to find here. And you get the transmog weapons. Transmog armor is no longer available; those were part of the Mists of Pandaria challenge modes. However, the weapons are pretty great in and of themselves. So, thanks so much for watching, guys. I apologize for any missteps there, but enjoy the rest of the videos. Cheers.